So we're doing this conversation as part of our summer exhibition at the View Contemporary Art Space in Saalenstein in Switzerland. And I have the big pleasure to welcome a second time Teresa Diehl, who has been our guest last year and this year again, right? And we're very, very happy to welcome you this year again.
I think I'm going to start paying rent in here, you know.
We're making a thing out of that.
Yeah.
And maybe to give our first viewers a little impression, you've been born in Lebanon. You grew up in Venezuela.
Yes.
And you're currently based and working in the United States.
In Miami.
In Miami.
So it has still that Latin connection.
Right.
It's the closest point to South America from the United States. So that is actually one of the reasons why I live in Miami, because it's the closest to Venezuela that I could find in that continent.
And your work, as well as your biography, you bridge the East and the West.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting that also I try to do that in here. It's like you have this constant duality, this constant kind of multiple backgrounds, this, you know, it's almost like a gypsy of the world.
Right.
I mean, connecting the East and West. And when we think of the East and the West, we think of them as such a different culture, so separate from each other. When you really start looking closely, we're the same. And that's what I wanted to make the connection in this piece, you know, Haram, Gloria al Bravo Pueblo. And even in the title, the way they can play off each other, like
right.
Haram, to the, you know, Haram, how sad is this brave people,
Yeah.
you know, how sad what's going on with this brave students, what they're going on through.
And maybe if we start before we talk about the pieces you did for The View, I love that you once said that all your works are basically layers of all your experiences. And by stating that, you're basically doing the argument that all your pieces are done through empathy, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the idea of like empathy is a very important concept. If I could summarize what I like to work with, is the idea of like create an awareness that we need empathy. We cannot live in this world so detached from each other. We cannot be apathetic to the injustice that is going on. We cannot be apathetic about the unfairness, the sorrows that are happening around us. I'm not necessarily saying that we need to go around suffering mea
Right.
culpa and being martyrs. No, I'm not talking about that. But it's to share an understanding that, hey, tell me what's going on. Tell me, I might not be exactly in your shoes, but I can identify it, or I can try to understand. Just the idea of like empathy, the idea to understand someone, what someone is going through. And that connects us.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're from the East, the West, the North, the South, if you are Latin, Anglo, European, Russian, Chinese, we all have the necessity for human connection.
Absolutely.
And we all need to somehow feel that we are not alone. And with that, it creates a sense of empathy, that sense of caring, or that sense that, you know, okay, let me hear you. Let me try to understand you. I might not agree with you. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about empathy, that it is not about just totally, being petty against someone. It's just the sheer need to understand and trying to, you know, share that human connection with somebody else that is going through a harder moment or going through a tough situation, and trying to understand what is it to be in your shoes.
That's actually what makes your pieces, at least for me, so meaningful, because I mean, all the visitors who come here do have their own experiences. And
That's
basically
important.
all your pieces do still work with every background. So you do not need necessarily to understand everything, but you provide certain triggers, you provide information, and like all the information together form a little world. And you have two sides. Like a lot of your pieces are very, like Haram, are very deep and very sad. But on the other side, they're also very beautiful. There's a very intimate experience, and you show a sort of artistic world where both things like contrast can live together. And I really appreciate this contrast, because that's part of the empathy as I understand it. Like the contrast of living in with different experiences doesn't have to make me understand you in a different way, but like my empathy can live in the contrast to you, and still believe in a shared humanity.
Because that is the important things, that you have to respect somebody else's point of view too. That is showing empathy.
Right.
That it is not, you have to believe in what I believe. No, that necessarily that is not empathy. Empathy is trying to understand, but I'm still maintaining your own boundaries, your own point of view.
Right.
But you create a certain kind of commonality of shared knowledge that you can, both sides can gain from it. And I think that that's important as an artist, that how do I, how do I create that, how do I share that need for empathy while I'm addressing in terms of content the issues that are significant to me or they affect me personally. If it doesn't affect me, then there's no, that starts from that. It has to affect me. I have to feel it. Because I'm not interested in decorating the walls. I'm not interested in, I'm not a reporter reporting the news. I'm someone that it is reacting. Blatantly, I'm protesting against a situation. And my way of protesting against a situation that I find to be unfair is through my artwork.
Right, and there's another notion, it's not just empathy, it's also smashing the myth of neutrality.
Well, I'm sorry, I cannot stay neutral about the situation. If I feel something is wrong, and if I feel something is not right, and if I have a voice, I better speak up.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? What are we afraid of? I mean, why do we have to be so politically correct and, walk on eggshells? Why do you need to make these pieces? There's so much about conflict, and people are tired of conflict, you know what I mean? But it's there. It's happening to us. And the reality is that a lot of people, they're not even aware of it because they don't take the time for whatever reason. Maybe because they're afraid of getting hurt. Maybe they're afraid that they don't care. Maybe it's an investment of their own emotional baggage that they don't want to share. They don't want to kind of like split with somebody else. There are so many layers to the equations, but the point is like, I have a voice. I'm going to speak up.
Absolutely.
And it is not that I'm taking a side for you or for him. It's I'm taking the side of like reality. Look what's happening.
Yeah.
Look at what is going on in real time. Do you think that this is fair, what's going on? Do you think that, so how can you remain neutral about that?
Absolutely, we agree on that concept. We're shooting this video within your installation, so one of the two installations you've done for the view, so maybe we can talk about this piece in particular, Gloria al Bravo Pueblo.
Gloria al Bravo Pueblo. Gloria al Bravo Pueblo is the anthem, the national anthem of Venezuela. Gloria to this brave people. But there is a double meaning with the word bravo. You can read Gloria al Bravo, like the mad people, the upset people, or Gloria to the courageous people. And in this case, it started as it's like the national anthem was written in 1810. A way of unifying the forces against, like the Spaniards and, fighting for freedom, para la libertad, to engage the people in a commonality like the Marseillaise. Let's unify with some kind of un cántico, with an identity that connects us. Well, Gloria al Bravo Pueblo from 1810, it has become Gloria al Bravo Pueblo 2017, 2018. And which is absurd to me that this is the national anthem. So you're talking about the government in any formal event, in any situation, they play it.
Right.
Any meeting, any sightings in the Congress, any event with the president, Maduro's, listens to Gloria Bravo Pueblo. But are you understanding the words? Are you aware of what the forefathers told us to do? Fight for your rights. And if despotismo levanta la voz, seguir el ejemplo que Caracas dio, that means fight for your rights to freedom.
Yeah.
So, abajo cadenas, they're telling you in 1810, fight for the right to live.
Yeah.
And this is what these kids are doing. They're being very nationalistic. They're going by the national identity of who are we? Venezuela.
Yeah.
We're not individual groups. We're not like gringuitos, and we're not this and we're not that. We are Venezuela. They are Venezuela. And they're fighting for their rights.
In case the viewers do not know, since, I mean, the situation has been still currently very tough.
Yeah.
And in
And it's getting worse
2017,
every
we
day.
had a student uprising, student protests around the whole country. A lot of them are in jail, are
Yeah.
being severely beaten up by the
Abused,
military.
beaten,
abused.
kind of like totally their dignity desecrated.
Yeah.
You're talking about they're going completely, this government,
Yeah.
this regime, yes, you know who you are.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that they're drunken with power.
And it's also the images we do see in this piece here. We're surrounded by images from the student protests, like witnesses who filmed the atrocities
protest, yeah.
happening. But it's contrified with other images, and maybe you can tell more about
there's a juxtaposition of three things going on in here. You have la Guardia Nacional Bolivariana,
the military.
And you have like the forces of Maduros, and you have them los motorizados, that a way of like infiltrating the masses and having access to. Even they tell you, aquí nos está impidiendo la protesta, you have the right to protest, but you're intimidating people. You're absolutely intimidating, and you're violating for a peaceful protest. Things start peacefully and then they escalate. So you have the idea of like the Guardia Nacional Bolivariana. You have the protesters, for the most part, in this case are like the students and people, normal people that have joined the students. And then there are those two set of group of people. They're juxtaposed in conjunction with videos of children playing typical Latin American games.
So we have piñata.
La piñata, gato al ratón, la bolita, you know what I mean? So we are robbing these kids from their innocence. I mean, where there used to be games of like, dale a la piñata, dale. Now we say, dale. No es darle a la piñata, dale al guardia, o dale por tu libertad, o dale para defenderte. You know what I mean? So you're changing now the argument. So like the little playing with the hands now is about, it's like learning how to push and trying to defend yourself.
Yeah.
So now before you will have like, el gato al ratón, yes, well, you better run fast against el gato or the Guardia Nacional or Guardia Bolivariana that's going to chase you to beat the hell out of you.
Right.
So we have shifted the games now. And what game is Maduro playing with the people?
Yeah.
Really, why they're lying to them, telling them that everything is fine and everything is good, where the reality talks about completely a deteriorating country.
Which makes this piece so meaningful and so deep, because you're putting all these different snippets of realities that do exist, not necessarily at the same time, but that do exist in the same world. You put them here and you oppose them with text snippets as well. And I think all of them create sort of this living archive, because also the snippets of text is like this contained information of truth. Mm-hmm. But as we know, truth right now is a word that doesn't exist like that. Like truth depends very much on which side you are, because there are facts, there's information, and then it depends very much on the knowledge you put in.
And in the context that it's
context,
been delivered,
very
all
much.
of those elements.
Absolutely.
It's kind of interesting that you bring the idea of like combining text. It's one of the few pieces, the first kind of like that I'm really juxtaposing the idea of text as an image and text as a voice.
Yeah.
Part of the text that you see projected in the piece is like, one is the national anthem. I wanted people to read it. I wanted people to understand it in the context and the contradiction of what was said and what they're singing versus what they're doing. So the in terms of like governmental, the official government, sings this song, sings this anthem, but they're doing totally the opposite of what they're swore to, to keep close to heart.
Yeah.
The same thing, like when you see some of the other text projected on the side walls, they are the translations of the sounds that you hear in the videos. So I want you not only to be able to hear them, as an emotion, as you walk through the piece, they appear at random from one place to another, and it becomes chaotic because you don't know where they're coming from. Like if you were in the midst of this kind of like chaos, you don't know what is coming from where. But also I wanted to reflect on like almost like graffiti.
Yeah.
Like markings on the wall. The writing is on the wall, está escrito en la pared.
Or actually on us.
But it's also writing on us. I mean, it's like, there's a saying in Venezuela, it's like, mira lo que está escrito en las paredes. It's like, like the writings are on the wall. Yeah. It's there, read it, understand it. That's the truth. But sometimes it doesn't sink.
We don't acknowledge it.
We don't acknowledge it, so, and a lot of them, they become broken, they're intervened, they are disconnected.
Yeah. There's like a sense of distortion of
there's
disorientation.
And part of it has to do with the idea that it's kind of sad, a lot of this information within Venezuela itself has been restricted because the government, Maduro's, control for the most part all the media, but not the internet fully, although he will totally love to control it completely. So a lot of this, that's why you see a lot of the equipment being shown, like the cables, the media players, the social media player. So all the tools that I use, they have to be organic to the issues that I'm bringing into the work. And they have to complement with each other. Absolutely. They have to address, so that's going back to the idea of like, you create that sense of empathy by giving the viewer something that they're familiar with, they have a certain commonality, the media player, the projection, the internet, the Wi-Fi.
Right.
You know what I mean? The Wi-Fi. We have Wi-Fi.
Right.
Oh, the Wi-Fi is not working. Right. So, and it's the whole idea of the cloud. So by tapping into the cloud, all of us, every single person have access to the same imagery. These are not actors. These are not rehearsed events. These are, pretty much taken from live leaks, WikiLeaks, and videos, sent by people, that I've had access to. And of course, they have been worked to create an aesthetic language with them, because at the end, I work in those worlds.
It's not just a piece.
But at the same time, it is important that the idea of like they're coming from the cloud.
Right.
They're coming from what I call now our collective unconscious, the cloud.
Right.
In this case, there's a dark cloud.
Right.
And also that's why you see the idea of the fog, the idea of like the vulnerability of the media, the idea las palabras se las lleva el viento, or the words went up in smokes. So there's all the sayings that somehow they're incorporated into the piece in a very subliminal way.
And while this piece feels very fast-paced, if we change the room, we get to the second installation, Haram. Where darkness is sort of a connecting point.
Darkness,
Absolutely.
Both pieces, I wanted to make sure that there was a commonality, again, East and West. They both share the same palette, black and white. I mean, for the most part, they're very neutral colors. but they're
Absolutely.
not addressing neutral issues.
Exactly,
So,
right.
you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
that is the argument. It's like, in here, I'm not deceiving you with the nationalistic colors of Venezuela or the nationalistic colors of Syria or the Middle East or whatever region it is, but it's more about creating that binary language of on and off, that very basic binary language of blacks and whites.
And when we go to the room, maybe you can walk our viewer through, like we're getting into the second space and we're welcomed by darkness. At least, I mean, it's not real darkness, but it's gray and nudes. And we see huge curtains.
Oh, let's, you know, if you want to take a walk or...
And I know that you are all about experience, so I don't want to spoil too much.
Yeah.
But it's also working with this distortion moment, this orientation. Like
Yes.
the viewer has to go through it and gets lost.
It's kind of interesting because I wanted to start with Gloria al Bravo Pueblo. I wanted to make this a Gloria al Bravo Pueblo. I wanted to, you know, pay homage to the people that stand out and fight for the rights. Glory to them. You're descending into the space. The idea of like descending, and that's what I love about the views spaces, that you can play. The space allows you to address layers physically. They're giving you the physical, you know, reality of playing with this idea that I can go down the stairs, I can project on the stairs. I have a, you know, rounded ceiling. You know, I have the height that allows you to elevate your thoughts, you know, your spirits. So in that aspect, I think that you have to work with the space because
that's what
it's
you've done,
outside.
because we had you here in the residency. That's something, I mean, all these pieces have been
pretty
done
much
in
done
situ.
in, I mean, pretty much they're being done in situ. There's, you know, the idea of the pole generated because being in the space, connecting the walls, connecting the floors, connecting the ceilings. So let's have a dialogue with the space. Let the space, as I said last time in the other video interview, that the space, you're dancing with the space. You're having a wonderful kind of like connection with it, and you're doing what the space is asking you to do. So we're collaborating with each other. So it's not just my idea, but it's like what needs to be done to convey the spirit of the work. Descending into Gloria al Bravo Pueblo, you have these very hard lines, very geometric shapes. You are aware of the boundaries. You are aware of the edges. You're aware of like a hopscotch kind of game, like you can jump from one zone, from one area to the other. It repeats, it's chaotic, but you can see the divisions of the space.
Yeah.
But when you go into haram, when you want to be protected, when you want to be nurtured, what is the first gesture that you do? This. I wanted the space of haram to do this to me. I want the space of haram to embrace me.
Yeah.
So that's why for me it was important to use the circular space. So now from creating that juxtaposition and that contrast from the East and the West, but at the same time they're connecting through the values, through the palette, through the scheme, through the smoke.
And also through the theme, because both of them, I mean, there's a lot of grief and sorrow and silence. I mean, even though this piece is loud, but when I saw the piece for the first time, both of them, it left me speechless, because it's difficult to grasp. It's sometimes so difficult to make sense of all the information that surrounds us.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of your pieces do encounter, that they give you time to process and actually tell you it's allowed to process information.
And I want you to, for me, the piece becomes successful when you look at the piece and you have to take the time to say, okay, what I just saw here.
Yeah,
what is happening in here?
Right.
And then because of that, triggers the argument, like a butterfly effect, triggers the argument, okay, like what is really happening in here? And that truly is the work. Yeah. This is just the switch, the mechanism to ignite, the catalyst to ignite a questioning process. Is this really happening? Where is this happening?
Right.
Do I need to look at this? Oh, wow, how beautiful. Wait a minute, it's not that beautiful as I thought it was. And within that, you start questioning to create that empathy, to create that, do I care, do I don't care? Oh, wow, wow what?
Yeah.
Wow what? You know, so it is important that for me the viewer feel that they are included.
Yeah.
That they are included into the process of the assimilation of the work. That, yeah, it's a lot. You've been bombarded all over the place with all this information, but we live in the 21st century.
Right.
I mean, we're being bombarded with Facebook and texting, and every 5 seconds, ding, 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 like the pinning from WhatsApp and, you know, Snapchat and Facebook and this and that, and with social media, and I like, don't like, I like. So we are living constantly in this information accumulation, but do we really process it? Do we really care for what is being said and what is being communicated into this net of information?
And I mean, this is where we as an institution do come back into the game, because all the visitors do get a guided tour by us, because we believe very much in education. We believe very much, not just in education, but in a dialogue.
Yeah.
We do believe that everyone has a background. We're very curious about the sort of visitors who will come to the view. I could talk with you for hours, and I appreciate your work so much, and I honor all the things you do, and I know how much hard labor you put into these pieces, and we are very thankful, very grateful for all the hard work.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Well, it was being my pleasure. I hope that you guys come, and I just want to say thank you to you again for believing in me.
You do very
Believing in the work and believing what I'm trying to do. I think that is it's extremely important to realize that someone cares.
We do care.
And they're interested in providing a venue in which at times might be challenging, might not be comfortable to look at times, but they're interested in starting a dialogue. It's kind of interesting that we're in this little ideal paradise place in Berlingen, Schallenstein, but at the same time it's connecting, it's a center of connection between the East and the West.
We are all connected, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.